dark. Red and blue views, truth in the middle. No script, just thought raw and a little civil. Every question's got layers, so we peel back facts. From the real to the surreal, we don't hold back. Voices collide where ideas ignite. You tuned in, now step into the fight. This is more than talk, this is thought that counts. Welcome to the feed where the signal mounts.
You know how you can fall down an internet rabbit hole and suddenly find yourself in these really specific online groups?
Ooh, yeah, definitely.
Lately, it feels like those connections have become, well, amplified, more intense maybe.
I know what you mean.
So today, we're taking a deep dive into something called digital tribalism. What's actually going on when these online tribes or even these, cults of personality form, and what does it mean for, how we all interact?
That's the big question, isn't it? And for this deep dive, we've got some really interesting material. We're looking at an open panel discussion from the OTW Live YouTube channel.
The one called Digital Tribalism. Why is everyone in a cult now? A bit provocative.
Yeah, it definitely catches the eye. And we're also digging into a really insightful article that looks at the broader picture of online communities and this polarization everyone's talking about.
Okay, so our mission here is pretty clear, I think. We want to really understand how these online groups, these tribes, take shape.
Right, what drives them, especially this idea of the intense cults of personality.
And, of course, the role algorithms play in all this. You hear about that constantly.
Absolutely. The goal is to give you, our listener, a clear, engaging picture of the potential impact, on social division, but without it feeling like homework.
Exactly. Okay, let's dive in then.
So that YouTube panel, they jump right in talking about online cults and these cults of personalities.
Right.
You immediately get this feeling of really strong loyalty, this kind of shared identity within these digital spaces.
And the article complements that.
Yeah, it offers a wider lens, framing these digital tribes as, well, almost a new frontier in human social development. Technology driving this new way of connecting.
A new frontier. That's interesting. The article also mentions benefits, right? It's not all doom and gloom.
Not at all, no. It points out real positives, finding connections, professional networking, even exploring different cultures, things you might not access otherwise.
Okay. So these tribes offer something valuable.
Definitely. And the article makes the key point. Understanding how these tribes work is becoming pretty crucial for navigating the online world effectively, whether you're looking for community, building a career, whatever.
Makes sense. Okay, so we have these groups forming, offering connection. Now, back to the algorithms. Because that feels like the elephant in the room sometimes. How much are they influencing things?
Yeah, the panel really tackles that head on. They talk about how algorithms curate our feeds, deciding what we see. And the worry, obviously, is that this curation often just reinforces what we already believe. It kind of sorts us into these information bubbles.
Echo chambers.
Exactly. Echo chambers. And that leads them to discuss the work of Christopher Bale.
From Duke University's Polarization Lab. I've heard of his research. Pretty eye-opening stuff.
It really is. The panel discusses a video excerpt of his work, and he focuses a lot on something called effective polarization.
Effective polarization. Remind me.
It's basically this growing trend where people increasingly dislike or even, hate the other political side, almost separate from actual policy disagreement.
Just hating the other team.
Pretty much. And Bale points out something striking. Around a decade ago, for the first time, this negative feeling towards the out party actually became stronger than positive feelings towards your own party.
Wow. That's a significant shift, isn't it? Disliking them more than liking us.
It's huge. A recipe for division, like you said.
Yeah.
And Bale uses these really powerful visuals. The panel talks about an app his lab made mapping Twitter users. They use journalists as an example.
Okay, what did it show?
Well, each dot is a journalist or outlet. Lines show who follows whom. And what it reveals is just stark separation, clear clusters, liberals following liberals, conservatives following conservatives.
I'll do a picture of that.
The panel's reaction was pretty strong. They called it mind-blowing, seeing it laid out like that. How clearly it categorizes people.
Yeah, seeing it visually must really drive home that echo chamber idea.
Exactly. And Bale's concern, which the panel gets into, is that this kind of ideological separation, this segregation, it can lead to, like, tunnel vision, myopia.
Right, only hearing from people who already agree with you.
And social media makes that easier than ever, and the algorithms might be amplifying it.
Okay, so the echo chamber seems pretty central to understanding digital tribalism, but is that the whole story?
Well, this is where Bale's research gets really interesting and, frankly, kind of counterintuitive.
How?
He ran an experiment using bots. These bots exposed Twitter users to opposing political views. Tweets from the other side.
Okay, so the idea would be maybe that exposure bridges the gap, reduces polarization.
That's what you'd think, right? That's the intuitive thing. But the result was surprising. For many people, this exposure actually increased their polarization.
Seeing the other side made them more entrenched in their own views.
Exactly. It totally goes against the simple echo chamber explanation.
So why? How did they figure that out? To understand why this happened, Bale and his team did follow-up work, including in-depth interviews. The panel discusses one case study, a Democrat named Taddy.
Okay, Patty the Democrat, what happened with her?
Her Twitter feed was deliberately exposed to more moderate Republican viewpoints. But instead of, shifting her views or finding common ground...
Let me guess, it made her dig in her heels.
Pretty much. It seemed to strengthen her liberal identity. She actually ended up engaging in more political arguments online, not fewer.
Huh. So seeing different ideas didn't build bridges? It kind of reinforced the walls. Why would that happen?
Well, Bale's conclusion, which the panel really emphasizes, is that maybe we're thinking about social media the wrong way. It's not primarily about information exchange or even just entertainment.
It's about something else.
It seems to be a crucial tool for constructing and performing our identities, especially political identities.
Ah, I see. So for Patty, seeing those Republican tweets wasn't about processing information. It was about defining herself against them. That's the idea. Solidifying who she was in opposition to those views. It's a really different way of looking at it, isn't it?
Yeah, it shifts the focus from the content to, how we see ourselves and our place within these online groups, our tribes.
Precisely. And this leads to another really key concept from Bale that the panel brings up, the social media prism.
The social media prism. What's that?
Think of it like a lens that distorts reality online. It doesn't just reflect society. It refracts it.
How so?
Bale's idea is that the online environment tends to amplify certain voices and behaviors. Specifically, it might embolden extremists or people who are very focused on seeking status and validation.
Especially if they maybe can't get that status offline.
Exactly. Online, they can find their tribe, find that validation, even for really extreme views. And the prism effect makes these voices seem louder and more representative than they actually are.
Okay, so it gives a skewed picture.
Very skewed. The panel mentions this incredible statistic from Bale's research. Something like 6% of Twitter users create 73% of all political tweets in the U.S.
6% create nearly 3/4 of the political content. Wow.
Right. So what you see online, the dominant conversation, is often driven by a small, potentially more extreme minority. It creates this perception that those views are normal or widespread.
Meanwhile, the majority, maybe the more moderate people, are less visible.
Much less visible. The panel touches on why. A big factor is fear of harassment, getting attacked online, sometimes even by family or friends.
Yeah, that's real.
There's also, apathy, feeling like your voice won't matter anyway. And frankly, there's less social reward, less incentive for moderate takes compared to fiery, status-seeking posts.
They mentioned an example, didn't they?
Yeah, a brief one about a young conservative woman who just endorsed an NRA post, nothing extreme, and got a threatening message. It illustrates the kind of risks people perceive, which silences them.
That paints a pretty bleak picture. What we see online really might not reflect what most people actually think or feel.
That's a crucial takeaway, I think. But the panel doesn't just stop there. They also bring in some alternative perspectives, some nuances.
Like what?
Well, for instance, they have this interesting discussion about how the term right-wing seems to be shifting, how, ironically, sometimes being right-wing now seems to involve being open to hearing different ideas, something historically associated more with liberalism.
Huh. That highlights how fluid these labels are, doesn't it? Definitions change.
They really do. And the panel also questions whether everyone really fits neatly into that red versus blue binary that a lot of polarization research, including some of Bale's, tends to focus on.
Right. Are there people who don't fit?
They talk about outlier groups, people sometimes called the fringe or maybe post-spectrum, who just don't align with the standard left-right divide. The online world isn't just two monolithic camps.
So it's more complicated than just two opposing tribes yelling at each other.
Definitely seems that way. And another interesting point, based on Bale's follow-up research, the panel sort of downplays foreign misinformation or those radicalizing algorithms as the primary cause of all this polarization.
Really? Because you hear so much about Russian bots and algorithms pushing people to extremes.
Right. But Bale's findings, as discussed by the panel, suggest that while those things might play a role, they aren't the fundamental drivers. It comes back more to these internal dynamics of identity, status seeking, and social signaling within the PRISM.
That's actually quite surprising. It puts the focus back on us, on human social dynamics, rather than just blaming the tech or outsiders.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So as we kind of start to pull this together, what are the main things that stand out from this deep dive?
Well, first off, digital tribalism is clearly really complex. It's not simple. Algorithms, yeah, they shape our experience, but they aren't the whole story, maybe not even the main driver of the division we feel.
Right.
And this idea that stepping outside your bubble, seeing other views, can sometimes backfire and actually increase polarization, that's pretty mind-bending. It really makes you stop and think.
It does. And that social media PRISM concept really sticks, I think. The way it amplifies the loudest, maybe most extreme status-seeking voices, while making the moderate majority feel invisible or afraid to speak up. It creates this distorted view of what everyone else thinks.
So for you, our listener, hopefully trying to get up to speed quickly but also deeply on this deep dive gives you a better framework, a way to understand these online dynamics that can feel pretty baffling sometimes.
Absolutely. And maybe it leaves us all with a pretty important question to chew on.
Which is?
Well, if Bale's research suggests that this competition for identity and status is such a powerful force driving polarization online, maybe even more than just arguing about facts or policies, then how do we foster better interactions?
How can individuals and maybe the platforms themselves encourage more constructive conversations, ones that actually value understanding, not just, tribal point scoring?
Exactly. How do we build online spaces that lean towards thoughtful discussion over just reinforcing our own group? It's definitely something worth reflecting on, maybe thinking about your own online habits and the dynamics in the communities you're part of.
One spark, from the shadows to the bright, let's light the dark. Red and blue views, truth in the middle, no script, just thought raw and a little civil. Every question's got layers, so we peel back facts. From the real to the surreal, we don't hold